Jane Hart is a young mother going public about an often misunderstood condition.
Her doctor diagnosed her with dissociative identity disorder.
It's what we all used to know as multiple personality disorder.
NBC's Joe Fryer got the chance to meet her and learn a little bit more about it. Joe, this is a fascinating one.
Yeah, that's right. Good morning, guys. A new docuseries premieres tonight on A&E Network called Many Sides of Jane. It follows the daily life of the 28-year-old mother. We went to Idaho to spend time with Jane and learn more about the disorder and why she's now sharing her story publicly.
Jane Hart is a single mom who's raising two boys and learning to live with many identities.
Alexis, Jade, Madison, Ashley.
She has at least 9 different identities, or as Jane likes to call them, parts.
Yeah, it's Madison, not Jane.
They range in age from 6 to 28 and can appear at any time, typically triggered by stress.
I have secrets to tell you.
Those moments are captured in the new A&E docuseries Many Sides of Jane, which chronicles what it's like to live with dissociative identity disorder, or DID. Jane has lived with the disorder much of her life, but was only diagnosed 3 years ago.
All growing up, I would hear voices and I would hear arguments. It would be like having a committee in your head commenting on everything you're doing.
Let's take a picture.
What are some of the things that people say that they get wrong or don't understand about DID?
People immediately assume when you tell them you have DID that you're dangerous.
DID is considered rare. Some studies show it's found in about 1% of the population. Experts say it's often caused by severe trauma during childhood.
The mind becomes compartmentalized as a result of traumatic experience that's almost always emotional and frequently physical and sadly frequently sexual.
Jane says she was abused as a child and now understands that DID helped her cope.
It's a way that the brain walls off those bad memories so that the child can function in day-to-day life and so that they don't have to live with that every day.
One of her parts, Beth, is 10 years old and houses some of Jane's most severe trauma.
And what's your relationship to Jane?
I keep bad people away from Janie.
Something especially traumatic happened when I was 10, and that's why she was branched off and split apart from everyone else.
In a lot of ways, your different parts are protecting you, right?
My parts were all created to protect me. Their purpose is to help me and to make life easier.
I'm a part of Jane. I think I'm a little more impulsive than she is, for sure.
But it's not always easy getting all of her parts to work together, and that can impact parenting, jobs, dating, and more.
It's just a matter of us making it day to day and functioning together and really being on the same page, because if we're not, things get really, they just jump around a lot, I guess.
Is there a stigma about DID that's most hurtful to you?
The stigma that's most hurtful is the parenting one. It's where people assume that you're not a good parent or that you can't handle it, because it couldn't be farther from the truth.
Can you explain to your kids what DID is?
I tell them I have a unique brain and that mine is just wired a little bit differently than others.
What helps Jane first and foremost is intensive therapy. She goes 3 times a week. She also writes in journals. In fact, different identities have their own journals, and she makes collages.
You know, it's a really good outlet for our creativity, but it's also a way that my parts and I talk to each other and kind of relay messages that we can't otherwise vocalize.
Now Jane is vocalizing in a big way, sharing her story publicly, hoping to raise awareness about DID.
I made a promise to myself when I decided to do this docuseries that I would be 100% real. It takes one person to stand up and talk about it.
Joe,
Wow.
it really is fascinating. Just out of curiosity, did any of her other personalities make an appearance during your interview?
No, not at all. And I even asked her, I said, you know, is there a chance that any other parts would come to the surface during the interview? She said, no, that's highly unlikely because they weren't familiar with me and the crew around us, so they tend not to come out in those settings. So she knew in advance that that was probably not going to happen.
Do they just kind of pop in and out, or do certain experiences and day-to-day activities trigger certain personalities to come out?
Often with DID, it is stress that triggers it, and for her, physically, she usually knows it's happening because she'll actually have a headache, and that's usually what lets her know that it's happening. So in many situations, including hers, stress is usually what can trigger that.
I'm sure a lot of people are wondering this at home. So let's say she's with her kids, and kids obviously can cause stressful situations. Has she ever slipped into the part of a 10-year-old when she's with her children?
Yeah, sometimes, obviously, the different parts, some of them are younger, will come up while she's with her children, but they all know how to take care of the kids. One of her parts, Madison, is the same age as Jane, 28 years old, and she's very much a caretaker and sort of makes sure that the kids are always taken care of. Jane's always making sure the kids are taken care of. She says they sort of work as a team just to make sure that everyone's sort of on the same page and taking care of the kids.
So, Joe, I understand also for relationships, this has got to be very, very difficult. She, at least as Jane is dating a guy, but one of her parts is a lesbian.
Yeah, that's right. And she talks about that, and this will be explored in the series. But one of her parts is a lesbian, and Jane is not a lesbian. So that does create, you know, some issues that she has to deal with as far as dating and who she can date and those types of things. And in the first episode, they do dip into that a little bit and explore some of the things that pop up because of that.
Wow.
Joe Fryer, Joe, thank you. Again, quite fascinating. If you would like to learn more about DID, you can actually go to our website, today.com. And Many Sides of Jane airs tonight on A&E.